Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Jiya, a 14-year-old high school sophomore from India, exploring computer science, especially AI, and how it's shaping the way we build things. And it is my privilege to be your host for this panel today. Firstly, I would like to thank the GIFT team for creating this platform and not just for consistently bringing together people for, from around the world for 24 hours, but, but in ways that last far beyond the event. I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Julie Ma'am and Jake Sir for giving me the support and help while putting this together. And to the panelists, thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to listening to your perspectives and experiences. Today's panel is called Who Writes the Code? And I think this is something a lot of people here are already thinking about in different ways. So today we're going to be talking about how AI is changing the way software is built, and most importantly, what that means for how developers think, learn, and take responsibility for what they create. Before we get into this discussion, I'd love for each of you to briefly introduce yourselves and talk about how AI is relevant on what you're currently working on. We can begin with whoever's first on my screen. So, Ben, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. And it's a pleasure being here. My name is Ben Lewis. I am Deputy Director of a nonprofit in the Mississippi Delta in the US called Griot Arts. It's a community arts organization where we work with people in the community on how to use creativity to build your place in space. How do you build the communities that we all want to live in? And so for me, my background is in IT, but how we use AI specifically is through capacity building of our organization. So AI is enabling our staff to develop custom applications so we can better serve our constituents and the people that we work with.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sanjay, would you like to introduce yourselves next?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm Sanjay Kopikar.
I think he froze.
Yeah, I can, Mr. Sanjay, can you check? We can't hear you if you're listening, if you're able to listen to us. And I think by that time we can move on with someone else. Harsh, would you like to introduce yourself?
So, hello everyone. I am Harsh Kumar Singh. I'm a grade 12 student from New Delhi, India, and it's my pleasure to be invited in such a great conference with such young minds and such talented people. It's for the first time I'm attending a conference like this, and to give me a short introduction about me, I'm a kid. I love coding and building things, and I guess building things has been my passion. 1 year back, I started to learn to code, and I was really amazed to see the possibilities of how we can build things and how AI is changing that. The productivity speed has increased so much, and I'm really excited to discuss about it more. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. Tulika, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but
You
please
got it
go.
right. It's okay. Okay, so my name is Tulika. I'm currently a junior in high school in Somerset, New Jersey, in the USA. And some things about me, I obviously also, since I'm here today, you can assume I'm very interested in computer science, specifically. My interests lie in the spheres of AI, machine learning, and data science. That's where my interests lie. In terms of my experience with computer science in the past, I do have programming experience. Along with that, if any of you guys were listening in on the panel yesterday around 5 p.m. EST, I did come in and talk about a nonprofit that I run myself that's about computer science education. So that is also some experience that I have with this sphere. But yeah, I'm very happy to be able to talk to everyone today and kind of get exposed to different perspectives on AI and how exactly it's kind of altering our thinking in our world today. Thank you.
Thank you. We're very excited to have you, and we're very excited to listen to what you have to speak to us about. Tamir, would you like to introduce yourselves next?
Hello, my name is Tamir, and this is Noor here with me. We are from Make Education. We created a platform that enable anyone to craft robots from recycling pieces, recycling materials, anything you have at home or at school. and connect the AI to this and control it by AI.
And I'm not sure if that's your friend or colleague, but would they like to introduce themselves also?
Yeah, yes, hello. My name is Noor, and I'm working with Tamir in this startup. So basically, I'm a software developer here. I'm a full stack dev. And what was the question? How did I improve our flow, or what exactly was it?
No, I was just wanting to know how AI is just relevant in where you work. So
Okay, so the way I'm using AI in my workflow is like whenever I want to develop a feature, it kind of accelerate the development process of the feature and the way we test it, and that's it basically. Just use it to accelerate our development process.
that's amazing. And, I see Mr. Sanjay is back. So would you like to continue
Yeah.
to say?
Yeah, so Murphy's Law just played prank with me. So the moment I started speaking, my Wi-Fi out here just conked off. Yeah, so I'm Sanjay, based out of Bangalore, but right now in London and some work. Yeah, I have been in the industry, of course, been writing code since before most of you were born, nearly 40 years now. Right? Back then, on a lighter note, back then AI meant accidental indentation. Yet now I'm here. I'm like still relevant, slightly though, yeah, but still relevant. I build multiple companies. I run software companies. I have built a couple of products which are predominantly AI based automation platforms. So in fact, been in the leadership zones with Everest and Gartner and other analysts out there, right? So, and I'm also an author. I also am associated. I can see Anand there. I am also associated with IFI as an innovation foundation there. So yeah, so and you can see that AI is all around me. So I'm like excited to speak to all of you guys.
Thank you. We're excited to have you as well. And Anand, we've met before, but would you like to introduce yourself to the people who are new here?
Sure. I have been with AI since 53 years, much before the world AI even knew. AI is not artificial intelligence for me, it is Anand Iyer for me. So Anand Iyer is what I have been known as. So that's where my AI comes in. And currently, I head India as the National Director for Inventions and Innovations. And I also work very closely with Sanjay. We are currently working on a very exciting project on creating contents wherein we try to capture people's stories, not the regular stories. What we want to capture is how they have been able to use innovation in their life and how innovation has helped changed some of the decisions that they have taken, which not many outside the boardroom might even know, and not even some of the board members might be aware. But that is the kind of story that we want to capture and present it to the world so that the next generation of people can really see how people have really worked out. And that's one of the areas where we are trying to see how AI will play the role as something which can help us in understanding how the book itself would be structured and how we could really work on these things. So that's my take with AI. So AI talking to AI.
It was very interesting. So I don't see any more of our panelists here. So we will just continue and I will promote them as they join. So thank you all for introducing yourself, and I think that gives the audience a sense of the different perspectives we have today. And without further ado, let's start with the first question. Do you think developers are spending less time thinking and more time producing now? And is that a good thing? Anyone, you can raise your hands, unmute your mics, and we can start with the discussion. Yes, please, Adam.
Jiya, off late, what we see is that when we look up at AI as a tool, it should be rather be looked up as something which supports but not becomes the core. But many a times of late, what we see is that it has started becoming the core for many people. And especially, people who are the new breed of developers, they just try to get onto it and just pick up some things from the GitHub, post it back on the AI tools and rewrite, or go back to just writing the codes which are not in line with what is expected of a real developer. A real developer is somebody who really thinks and writes the code and identifies the problem and finds the solution. Of course, yes, when you're finding the solution, these new tools should be used as an extension, but not as the core. That is something, if we forget that, then I think what we are talking of, people losing the jobs, is going to become more evident than what it is being spoken of. If we really try to understand the role that a tool has to play and what the actual human brain has to play.
Yeah, I feel like that's very relevant, and I feel like if someone if someone in the audience is in computer science, they have definitely seen this in real life, and this actually helps people understand what's going on behind the scenes. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Yes.
I think I'll jump in. I think for me, the important part is, yes, I agree with everything that he just said, but also I think there's a flip side to the same coin. And it's kind of changing the frame, because I think all tools have the risk of reducing thinking. Every innovation reduces thinking. I mean, that was an argument against a calculator at some point. But how many of us in math actually slow down and stop and remember the basics? And I think for AI, it's the same risk. Yes, it can reduce thinking, but it also is removing barriers that have kept people out of building. I mean, how many of us have known somebody in the past that said, I have this amazing idea, but I want to develop this app that I think could change everything, but I need a developer. And now AI has kind of removed that barrier. And so it's shifting where the thinking is done and how the thinking is done. But I don't think it's reducing thinking in and of itself. It can. And as long as we're careful of that risk. But for what I see, the exciting part is that removing of the barrier and shifting how the thinking needs to be done.
If I may take that, so see, what has happened is that AI has absolutely increased the productivity for sure, right? But it has not. See, AI is like my junior developer, a brilliant but an overconfident one, right? So it produces a lot of code, right? But then, is it doing it right? So actually speaking, it is making me think more, right? If you have thought that thinking is what is outsourced to AI, then you are absolutely on a wrong path, right? So you are absolutely heading towards harakiri, if you would like to call it, right? So it's absolutely wrong to say that the thinking has reduced. Thinking is the only job that you have now, so that the doing is what actually outsourced to AI, right? Is the part that everybody should be extremely aware of, right? So it's like it ships fast, never complains, keeps working, and occasionally burns down the house as well, right? So it's like that's the part that you all should be aware of. And what is your job? Be the senior who knows why it is wrong, where it is wrong, and what is the part. Yeah, back to you, Jiya.
I would like to add, I agree very much that it made us be more critical thinkers and less think by our own, more be criticized about the AI outcomes. I would also like to say that it's a bit like navigation apps, like Google Maps or Waze. In the past, when I took a drive somewhere, I need to be very, my brain was very focused on the navigation, knowing the map, knowing the paths, how to drive, where to turn right or left. And for example, imagine that I was going to an important meeting, so my brain wasn't available to think about the meeting I'm about to join. It was about the navigating. But now when we have these navigating applications, our brain is is not very well practiced in navigation, but it is available to think on others. So I think that this metaphor is exactly that, like the previous participant said, that we are less focused on the logical, technical thinking of the coding, but we are more available to think like managers, like entrepreneurs, like what do we want that it will do, and so on. So
yeah, I think all of those are very thoughtful ways to look at it. If AI is replacing us, then we don't have to stop thinking. We just have to think differently. I see Tulika, your hand is raised. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I think one thing that has been briefly mentioned that I would like to touch upon in a bit more detail is kind of when you're using AI, like the extent to which you use it and the method in which you use it is very important because like obviously a lot of people do debate whether it like reduces your thinking or reduces your creativity. It really does depend on how exactly you use it. Like for example, when you're programming, there's a difference between just telling it to write you code and then not reading the code and just copy pasting it in, or every time it asks you a question just saying like yes, yes, yes without actually understanding what you're telling it to do. Like when you're telling AI to write you code, right? You should still be able to fact check the code it's writing, make sure that you understand the technical jargon it's giving you, explain it back, kind of be very specific in what you want it to do. So that is definitely something that is not as impactful on your thinking. Whereas if you're sitting there and you're not actually guiding the AI, you're just letting it do whatever you want. Like if you, for example, are vibe coding, right, on Visual Studio Code, and you have your AI, like the assistant open, and every time it asks you a question, you just click spamming the yes button. Like you're not actually reading, you just keep clicking it. Like if you don't know what you're doing, that definitely, I would say to an extent does affect your thinking. Along with that, I think aside from impact on thinking, AI also severely impacts your creativity to an extent, obviously, because when you're obviously there on your own, right? If you're trying like forced to think of ideas by yourself, obviously eventually like you kind of push yourself, so you have to be creative in that way. I think AI is also a bit limited because obviously remember at the end of the day, it is a large language model. It does study the same patterns and give you the same output. So a lot of times if you notice when two people are using AI and they ask it similar questions, it will give similar outputs, right? Because it is learning from data. So that's also something very important to keep in mind of just that if you use it the right way, the impact might not be as detrimental, but it's very, very important that you're mindful of how you're using it when you use it and making sure that like obviously your learning and your thinking is not being affected.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think that's very true. I see Ben, your hand is raised, and then we can go Harsh after that.
Yeah, I appreciate that thought. I think there's one nuance that I kind of want to pull out a little bit when we're talking about thinking here. And I think when people have this conversation about AI, we're conflating two topics because there's thinking around syntax and language, and then there's thinking around systems design. And I think what AI is doing is it's removing the barrier around syntax, the technical code, and that knowledge. What's needed more than ever is that systems design. And so to Tulika, did I pronounce that right? Is that okay? Thank you. To her point is, yes, if you're sitting there spamming the yes button and it's just letting it build, you're not doing either. And I do want to also state, because there are some new people out there that are probably not exposed to development, not exposed to coding. Vibe coding is a wonderful start. If it gets you in, if you're intimidated, AI can remove that barrier of code. But just to keep this in the back of your mind, so if you're a first-time developer wanting to see if an idea works, I definitely encourage all developers to get in there and just start building, but then slow down and pause, ask questions, think critically. But I think for this conversation, where I think the level of thinking that needs to happen is more on the system design level and architecture and less on the code.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Harsh, your hand was raised, and then Mr. Sanjay, you can speak after that.
I guess the question of thinking can melt down to the point of product development. because nowadays it's not so hard to code. You can go to any agent, you can go to Cloud Code, and you can tell it to code. The question is how good of a product you want to be. You should need to have that taste of product, like what exactly are you building? Because these days I've seen many people on LinkedIn that they write founders in their bio, and when I go and DM them and ask what does your product do, and then they will talk about all the bluff instead of the reality of what they are building, of what they are doing. Because what they have done is they have just clicked yes, yes, yes on their vibe coding agent, and they don't exactly have the idea. The biggest fact is that you need to have that product developmental approach, that what problem your product is solving and how you are going to do it. And because if you have these thinking, then it will be work in a better way, because coding is something which more and more people are going to do in future years. If you are able to do and design better plans, design a better vision for your product, then you will definitely go much ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like coding is also becoming more about taste, as you said, the actual knowing each and every syntax, each and every like line, how to write the code. So yeah, Mr. Sanjay, would you like to say something?
Yeah. So, quick, actually, step back, guys. Okay, so what is coding, right? So, all these languages, so as to speak, right? So, whether it is the JavaScript or Java or .NET, C Sharp, Python, you name it, right? What are these, right? So people coming from like for ages we've been coding. So the concept is very simple, right? Computer understands only the binary part, right? So these were the higher languages that were built to help us, the humans, to communicate better with the computers. Now, if the computer has started understanding the natural language, the prompt is your code, right? So how better prompting can you do is the language. The complexity of all those things that you've been speaking about has shifted to your prompt. How good is your prompting? How good is your knowledge about what you want to? It's not about the yes, yes, yes that Harsh spoke about. So how do you comprehend, uh, put it up across coverage? What do you want the agent to do? What you don't want it to do? All these constructs become that. So that is what I've been saying, right? Over next 4 to 5 years, you will see that the languages as we see it today are going to get extinct, the computer languages, because then your natural language itself is the primary construct, right? So you will have to go with what you want and all of that, right? That is where the agentic AI kind of comes into play, guys. So I think I will give that time back to you, Jia, because I know that you have more questions out there. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's so wild if you actually think about it, that writing prompts to the AI platform is actually becoming your code. And I think that fits in perfectly to the next question. Are AI tools changing the way developers form mental models of it? Because when you're wanting to develop, let's say, an app, you will have an idea or like a mental model of how it looks like, how it behaves. So do you think AI is changing that or limiting how people do that?
Yeah, since I ended, I can just continue, right? So mental models, like, so it's like it's no longer mental code, right? So it is mental prompt now, right? So that's what it is. It's which is not the same thing, right? So your earlier construct was, oh, you know what? Uh, while understand this, right? It's a tool. It can generate code for you, but it does not generate architecture for you yet. Okay, it's good soon come up with that, but the architectural blocks it can do, but a systemic thinking overall overarching construct is what it is not able to do right now, at least for this. Yes, it can come out with some construct, but doesn't mean that it is right. So you still needs the human validation, right? So the overall mental models and the model in which you are thinking has started changing, right? So I will give it back to all the other panelists. I'm sure they have the right experience in terms of coming out with the examples as well.
Yes, please, if you guys want to add. Oh, yes, Ben, you can add.
Yeah, I think this almost goes to, I think, a question, because you present for the audience, you present the question so we can kind of think through them. But there's a question later on around ownership a little bit. And I think that's what comes to my mind in this is with AI and coding and that ownership of the code, I think what it's doing is it's changing changing how you think about it. And so I guess where I'm going with this is what's coming to mind is like a hospital manager. You know, the manager of a hospital owns the hospital, knows what's going on in the hospital. They don't know what the surgeon's doing specifically. That's the job of the surgeon, but the documentation, the reporting, what the surgeon does, the manager needs to know as the outcome. And so not in detail. And so I think with AI, it's really that high level thinking is having that understanding of it's increasing the documentation, it's increasing the amount of testing we need to do. And so it is changing, but that's where the critical thinking comes in from the previous question as well.
Yeah, I think that's very engaging, and it's very true how this is happening. Would anyone else like to add to this? Okay, so let's just go on to the next question because and you can add on to this question if you have ideas about it later. Talking about the ownership question that Ben was talking about. The question is, can you really take ownership of your system if large parts of it are generated and you don't really understand what you've written in the code, like Tulika said? Can you still take ownership of it? Because, well, actually the AI is writing it. Would you like to continue with that answer, Ben?
Yeah, I'll jump in again with that, and then sorry, Sanjay, I'll let you go. But I think to me, another analogy, I like to think in analogies. If you haven't noticed that already, but I think the other analogy that comes in is absolutely yes, you can take ownership without fully understanding it. I mean, I think all of us do this every day with every system that we engage with. There are hundreds of millions of cars on the road. How many people understand how an engine works? And yet we take ownership over the car. Even now, with this platform of Zoom, many of us here are in the technical industry, so we have a comprehension of it. But many people engage with their phones, with Zoom, without and take ownership over the software without fully understanding how it's working. Now, there are downsides to that. The more you understand, the more ownership you can have, more control you can have. But I think absolutely you can still have ownership without fully understanding it down to the nuts and bolts of the car. But I'd be curious to see what everybody's thoughts are.
So here is the thing, right? You can't own what you can't explain. Simple. But let us not focus on too much on the vibe code and all that, right? So because as I said, we've been in the industry for like last 4 decades plus. So one thing, there was a time when the developers and the engineers thought that the code was the best thing that the planet Earth, right? So it's no longer under, right? It's not the code which matters, but problem you are solving today. Now with this happening, the possibilities are immense. So many different things actually solve it, right? As I was just speaking about, we run one concept called as a million mutiny, where we are literally helping people from grassroots to come up with unique ideas. And the kind of things that are coming back to us are mind-boggling. Somebody like really rejuvenating a pond with a solar enabled auto kind of rejuvenating itself and all of those were built through some kind of simple AI. The kind of impact it is going to have is phenomenal, right? It is actually going to help you. The other day I saw Claude and Anthropic plant which was almost dying. Understand the kind of impact that is going to have. So you are basically making the drought and all the other kind of natural calamities irrelevant if you put these things in place. That is one thing that AI cannot think about. That is the job that we will have to think about. AI can help you generate that code pieces and all that stuff at a rapid pace. But this is something that is, I have not seen this kind of pace of development in last 4 decades plus that I've been in the industry, right? But I'm sure Ben and rest of them also can tell you about that. It's opening up opportunities never been there before. So don't get frightened with AI. As somebody used the term, are they replacing? They're not going to replace. They are going to extend, enhance, elaborate everything else that you needed. You have an entire army behind you now, right? So that is a change in thinking that you'll have to think of. Yeah, back to you, Jiya.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I strongly agree with that, and thank you for clearing that impact. I think a lot of people in the listening are very relieved to know that AI will not replace them. Ben, would you like to continue?
Oh, I think Tamir had their hand up and then Tulika, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Just a small sentence. For my opinion, we should distinguish between simple and small applications and large and complex software. Obviously, for simple application, I think AI can entirely take ownership. We can take entirely ownership on the app, even if AI made it. And for complex software, I think that AI can do very good job in 80% of the coding work, but still we have to understand the details. Otherwise, we lost. At least for today. Maybe in 5 years, things will change. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's what differentiates between a good developer and a bad developer. You have to you need to understand the output of the AI tool that you're using. If you're just prompting it and you blindly accepting its code, that's a bad practice you need to get rid of. And that's basically it. Like whenever you prompt an AI, you basically need to take full ownership of its output and its work. Otherwise, you just like you setting up yourself for failure if you don't understand its output and its how it works.
Yeah, I think that is very true. Tulika, would you like to go next?
Of course. Sorry, I just want to clarify. The question is about ownership, right? If you're using AI to develop something.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll add on. So first of all, I really like to hear everyone's perspectives. One thing that I would kind of really like to add, this is kind of referencing something that Mr. Sanjay mentioned earlier, like how AI is kind of like your junior employee that's working for you, right? If there's a boss, right, and they're giving instructions to their junior, like program this for me or do this for me, the owner eventually is the person who is senior most, right? So essentially, think about it that way. If you're prompting AI to do something, it's almost like AI, you could say, is working for you. You're giving it the instructions. And then essentially keep in mind, since you have a pivotal role in this development process, because remember, AI can't be functioning on its own. You need to prompt it, you need to correct it, similar to how in a work environment, a boss would take an employee's work, give them feedback, tell them like, change this or fix this. I don't like this part. Similarly, if you're prompting AI and working with it and not exactly maintaining that human relationship, but that kind of exchange that you would do with a boss and their employee, you can definitely have that sense of ownership. Along with that, remember, at the end of the day, half of the sense of ownership does come from who's coming up with the idea, right? If you're using AI to program something, but the idea is yours, right? You know how it's going to work. You have in your mind the layout. This is what I want. This is how I want it to be. You're just asking it to help you. At that point, like I said, it's similar to just hiring a developer. But at the end of the day, since it is your idea and you're so like strongly like supporting the entire development process, that aspect of ownership does remain. But again, I think this does kind of slightly jump back to that. How much are you using AI to the extent? Obviously, at the end of the day, whether or not you're using it, if you're the one prompting it, it is your result. So technically, you would own it. But in terms of the sense of ownership that a person experiences, I would say the sense of ownership is much higher when you have that interaction, I guess, with the AI chatbot and you're kind of working with it to get what you want. Obviously, you have to factor in how you're prompting it, whether you're correcting it, giving it guidance and changing stuff. So I think that is very important to consider. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was very, very insightful and it was very well explained. Thank you, everyone. And because we have very limited time left, I would like to go with my last question and one of my favorites. If AI tools disappeared tomorrow, how many current developers could still make the same systems from scratch? Yes, Tulika, you can continue.
Yeah, it's
For
like
sure, Sanjay will be around. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like asking a question that, oh, without Google Maps, can you drive around? I don't know how many of you guys have driving license though, right? So yeah, I can't ask this question out here. Uh, yeah, but the thing is that we have actually driven across different parts of the world with the literally maps out there, like paper maps, and then we mark it and then drive it. Yeah, yeah, hypothetically it's a very nice question to look at, but the reality is that AI is here, right? But what is more important is understanding what AI, because AI is the universe itself, right? So it's become so massively large. What tool you use it for, what kind of requirement becomes the primary kind of construct, guys. Okay, so sometime back I was in another panel. One of the kid asked, oh, you know what, I just searched chat GPT and asked who is Sanjay Kopikar, and it said he's an actor and all that. You can look at me, I'm nowhere close to one, right? So so it said it's an actor, he's a director, and all that kind of thing. And what I looked at is that it must have put some. There is an actor called as Sanjay Dutt, and there is an actress called as Isha Kopikar. Put that together and created. I said, wonderful, it did its job. So he said, what are you saying? You are not any of this. I said, yeah, because it is a generative AI, and you are asking a generative AI to generate something, it is going to generate something back to you. If you wanted to find out who was Sanjay Kopikar, go to Google, search. It will give you hundreds of links that what I am doing and where I have come from, everything about me, because that is an index search. So use the right tool, use it as a tool only. It's not yes, it is an exciting tool. It's a new tool in hand, especially growing at a 500% or 1000% for all given thing. Very, very exciting, changing the perspective and changing the way we are working. But it is at the end of the day tool, right? Use it the way it is going to be. So even if it goes off tomorrow, you are still using a different tool tomorrow. You don't have to worry about this. Back to you, Jiya.
Thank you. Wait, that's such an intriguing way to think about it. Tulika, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can add on to this. So, in terms of how exactly people would, I guess, function without it, one thing that I think we've obviously, you can also see here, we have a variety of like age groups in this meeting. One thing that has stayed consistent over the last few decades is if every, like, it's pretty obvious, but the human species obviously is very great at learning things. We know this. With all like how much development we're seeing, we're always learning. AI itself was something that we learned and we created. So, at the end of the day, obviously, today's generation is possibly dependent on AI. But when we consider it in the global scope of things, first of all, the older workforce. If you notice, a lot of older people, I'm speaking maybe people 45 or 50 and older, if they are not caught up with AI, a lot of times they're still capable of doing the same stuff that AI can do and making the same apps. Maybe their speed is obviously not as fast because you're doing it by hand, but they're still capable of doing it and they do have that knowledge. They have all this knowledge, they have it in their brains, right? They don't use AI, they do it by themselves. So obviously at the end of the day, if we see AI disappear, I think that for a period of time, there might be a sort of identity crisis in a way where you're kind of struggling to catch up and be like, how do I do things without AI? But like I said, with how much the human species and culture just, there is such a big culture of learning, whether it's learning new things or learning things that already exist. If AI by any chance does fall off or disappear, there are always people that can learn and adapt. And considering, like I referenced, the older population is always there with that knowledge, they are obviously in a position to support the younger generations, offer them the knowledge that they might be lacking since they've been dependent on AI. At the end of the day, remember a lot of the people that are programming and use AI, right? They already have programming knowledge. They just are telling AI to do the programming. If you take away the AI, maybe they might take a little longer, they might flounder for a little bit, but they do have that knowledge in collaboration, maybe with more senior developers or people with more experience. They can still create the same products. The biggest factor is one, just that adjustment period, and then second of all, the time obviously would take longer. But I do think that people would be able to adapt without AI. It's just there would be some small changes in the way they work.
Oh, that's a very nice perspective to look at it, and thank you for explaining it very well. Ben, can you go next?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I want to reframe the question because I don't think it's as much about can we, what if AI disappeared tomorrow, could developers like still build? Because we all stand on shoulders. I don't know many developers today who could rebuild Linux or React from scratch either. And so there's always a tool that we're standing on from the predecessors. I think the better question is like, if AR were to disappear, can developers still maintain their software? Can they still extend it? Can they debug it? Can they recognize when it's broken? I mean, I think it goes back to the questions that we've been saying all along is, can we still think critically? And absolutely, I think we can. I think if AR had disappeared tomorrow, like Tulika just said, is we are creative, we're adaptive. I think we would find a new solution.
Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. We have 3 minutes, so if Anand and Harsh, you could go quickly, just talk about your answers.
I guess it's
hold on. Yeah. I was just going through one of the startup stories. It's a company called MedV. It started off in 2024 with one guy with $20,000. Today, it is valued at about 1.8 billion. And the whole team is one guy, and rest of them is all AI. Now, I really don't know. Coming back to your question, what would happen to someone like that when something just goes off wire or off the grid, or say, for example, our current situation in Middle East, and somebody tries to say, no more internet for you guys. Thank you. Yours lovingly, cut it off. And where are we going to go with all these data centers and all those things? So this is going to be a very tricky situation. Along with that, I would just like to share one more small story. Probably I'll just take a minute. My uncle was the Director General of NIC. NIC stands for National Informatics Center in India. And when America denied India the supercomputer, they had to completely form a team and develop India's own supercomputer. That is something what things can happen when somebody denies you a technology, or say someday this entire AI goes for. And India developed something called as Param series of computers, the supercomputer. And that same supercomputer was then exported back to US. So you can imagine how things can change. And it doesn't matter. I think there was a time when Y2K was a problem. Y2K passed off. We are almost 26 years after Y2K. AI is here. We will learn through. Maybe something else will come up. HIA would be the next level of human artificial intelligence, would be the next level. Who knows what? And probably genomics would start playing a role. We just need to start thinking somewhere sitting in the bathroom, and things would be writing out there. Anything could be possible. So let's not worry about how things are going to be. We humans are adept at doing things, and we will keep doing things.
Oh yeah, I've actually heard about that about the supercomputers and that story. Harsh, I think you have something to say. Do you want to give your perspective on this?
I guess it's going to be quite a bad dream to live without AI. Like, I woke up and I see that my AI is not working, Cloud Code isn't going to work. So I will be, I will punch me to wake up. Actually, the question is, most real developers won't going to stop. They will not stop building things. Who is going to stop? The ones who are completely dependent upon AI, like someone who goes to Lovable and writes a prompt, build me a B2B SaaS. That person is going to be stopped. He cannot build any more things. But if there is someone who understands what the code exactly does, then he can build products. And that's the important question. The question is, how much of your code are you able to understand? And yes, if AI isn't there, the productivity will definitely go down, and the amount of execution speed, everything will go down. But the biggest leverage with AI is productivity. You can be so productive. You can go from idea to building the first prototype in a single day, or if you take your time, you can even build your first prototype in a single week. And this is the power of AI. So it's a very bad dream of living without AI, and I hope it never comes true.
No, I don't think it will. AI is here to stay, and I think it will stay. And I think we have a few more minutes that we've got. So if anyone else would like to share something, you are open to share.
So yeah, as the AI is peaking, the more important thing that is slowly coming up, especially people like Tulika or Harsh, I think they would be extremely interested in the next wave of things that are coming, is basically the quantum computing part of it, right? So you need precision. What AI is bringing is the generative construct of variety of things, the linked concept of the neurons, right? But now what you need over a period of time is the precision. Because see, for example, if you are talking about healthcare agent, you would not be okay with a 90% precise healthcare agent, right? So you would not like to go with somebody saying that, oh, you know what, I'm going to Jiya, I'm going to assess your health and all that, but I'm only 90% sure, right? You would not like to go to someone like that, right? So how do you get into the precision? How do you get into the next level of solving complex scenarios that actually really exist on the in the business as well as the real world, right? That is going to be the next part of it. So while AI is enabling us, but these are the other areas that are actually exciting. And even after so many years, I'm sure Ben and Tamir and all of us who have passed through these phases over this, we are extremely excited to look forward and see what is coming up, right? So that is the thing that keeps us awake and getting excited all the time.
Thank you. Tulika, would you like to say something?
Yeah, another thing that I think since we're here anyway, I'll just add my input on in terms of AI. I think we haven't maybe covered this as much, but in terms of just how AI is affecting learning and development, I think since I'm here, I'll just add that in because that's something I'm very interested in. I think is also very important to consider because obviously, like Mr. Sanjay said, obviously as technologies are developing, even as AI is developing, first of all, it's very important more than anything that if you really want to stay in the sphere of technology, to constantly keep yourself updated on what is going on. You need to know, right? Because first, like kind of also jumping back to like, will AI take my job? Necessarily, that's not true, obviously. I think a lot of people have figured at this point that it's going to be more like people are going to be operating and prompting AI in their jobs. But the biggest thing is, in order to put yourself in a position to do this in the first place, you need to know what is happening in the sphere of technology, right? Like you can't just learn AI in one day just because it's not a constant type of development. Like you will be somewhere and 4 weeks later, everyone's jumped onto something else, right? As stuff develops and with the speed it's developing right now, like you have generative AI, then you have agentic AI, and it's like just developing faster and faster. And like Mr. Sanjay said, with quantum computing coming up, you really need to keep yourself updated with what's going on. That's kind of where the education sphere comes in. Like, obviously, along with AI, I think it's very important to still know other types of CS, like, still be familiar with just programming, with data science, even maybe how to train LLMs. You should know how LLMs work technically and machine learning models. But at the end of the day, all of this that we're discussing in terms of how exactly programming and thinking and everything is affected in the first place is very dependent on how knowledgeable you are on how the technology field is changing and just how you understand it and how much you keep yourself updated on it.
Thank you, Ben. I think I saw your hand raised earlier. Would you like to say something?
Well, I got one more thought that I think is really important. It doesn't get, I think, brought up enough. I'll just be really brief, is I think one of the things that we haven't talked about as a culture enough is the cost of AI yet. And I believe firmly in AI and the future of AI, but I also want to recognize that I don't think society has fully felt the burden of what it costs to run AI yet. And I'm not even talking about from an environmental standpoint. I mean, I think we need to think through all these issues. These are problems that I think we can find solutions for. But right now, AI is heavily subsidized by outside investments because it's a new trend. And my fear right now, as we talk about the democratization of intelligence through AI, I mean, this ability to have access to a whole new skill set as a developer. But my fear is once the outside investment stops moving in, once AI is not the hot topic anymore, I think that cost is going to get passed on to the end users. And so one of my goals is how do we continue to provide access? Because I don't want to divide and further kind of further the haves and have-nots, because I think at some point there will be a point where AI access will become like a utility where we have to pay, and then there will be people who don't have access and therefore then fall further behind. And so I think as a society, that's one of the challenges that I want to continue to think through is how do we continue to make it a true democratization of intelligence, of access and opportunity, and not let it get to a point of just something for those that have access to resources and privilege.
Yeah, I agree also. Thank you so much for your perspective, and thank you all for your perspectives. And that is unfortunately the end of the discussion. It was really fun and very intriguing to listen to you all and all of your experiences and what you had to say. And we got so many strong ideas, and that is exactly why I love hosting panels like this. And thank you to our panel. Thank you to all of you, our panelists, again for joining out of your busy schedule. And I hope to see you guys somewhere else, maybe again a gift. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the next group has not shown up. If you want to continue, you certainly can.
Really?
Yeah, but since I've already jumped in, I've been listening to this conversation. It's very good. Let me explain what my concern is. My concern is not with anyone on this call, because you are already experienced in programming and you know how to do stuff, even the very youngest people here. This is my concern. When I was a young boy, we were into cars, and we could take a car apart. We knew how the engine worked. We knew where all the parts were. We could put an engine into a car. We knew how to do that, okay? I have a car now, and it stopped working. And I opened up the hood, and there was not a single thing in that engine block that I recognized. There was no distributor. There was nothing there. So I had it towed to a garage, and I talked to the mechanic, and he plugged it in. We had a button and a computer, and he plugged it in. And he said, "Oh, here, I know what the problem is." I said, "How do you fix it?" He said, "We don't fix anything. We just take it out and replace it." And so what has happened is the technology has moved ahead. The auto mechanic doesn't understand how the car works. He just replaces parts. My concern is that in a few years, when all the people on this call are gone, that the next generation will not have any understanding of what's going on under the hood. So, I'm sorry, one more real quick story. I was doing some vibe coding recently, and I got an error message. It didn't work. And I looked at the error message, and I didn't understand it. And I went down and looked at the code, and I didn't understand it. There was nothing I could do, because I didn't understand the fundamentals of what was going on. And that's my fear, that in 10 years and 15 years, we're going to end up with people who don't understand what's going on under the hood. End of speech.
Yeah, if I may take that, Jake, it's a very interesting part of it. In fact, that is the thing that when Jiya asked ownership question, that's exactly the thing that we were all talking about, right? So it's not about what you have built, what made it work, or what made it not work is the primary thing that one has to understand, right? So that is the ownership part of it. It's not about who did that and how you got that built. But as things are progressing, Jake, there are agents which are built exactly to do this. There is an agent which is basically to test it. There is an agent which is built to, just like your car mechanic thing, is basically go ahead and identify the code where it is breaking. So there are going to be all these, if you've seen the movie Minions, right? So all these are the minions which are actually going to work for you, right? So steal that going after a bank and all of that. If you have seen the movie Minions, that's exactly is the concept that are coming in the virtual world today. But another interesting part, Jake, because you spoke about just taking another 30 seconds there, you spoke about the cars, right? What actually blows my mind is about the opportunities that we have got because of the AI and the kind of change it is bringing in, right? Here is the thing, right? So tomorrow, for example, one of the things that I realized when my wife wanted to drive, and then we had this car, and then she says, "Oh, you know what? I don't have the place to keep my handbag that is easily accessible to me when I'm driving." Okay, so the machines were built for men predominantly. Now, what it is going to change, Jake, is that tomorrow Jiya can actually order maybe a BMW or maybe a Merc and say that, you know what, I want it exactly like this. So the custom made car will be available to her at her doorstep within the same delivery lines that you are doing it at today, right? And that day is not very far. So we are already in the industry 6.0, right? Rather 5.0, which was, we were calling it as industry 4.0, with the internet of things and all of that. Now the internet of things have gone into the further part of it, becoming more aware and all that, right? So it is an exciting time. But yes, Jake, your concerns are valid. Things are going to break, things are going to fall apart before they become better.
Well, unfortunately, now we do have to stop. We have time for one more person. Tukla, would you like to talk?
Yeah, I'll try to take 30 seconds so Ben can also like add his words in at the end. But jumping back to what you said about, I think Ben mentioned this actually, knowing the cost of AI and you talking about like future generations. One thing to consider is obviously there's costs in many perspectives. Like you mentioned, the cost on the learning and development of future generations. If you're a kid, right, and you're like trying to learn how to code, in your mind, you're thinking like, I have this thing that codes for me. Why do I need to know how to code? Right. So as this development does continue on, people, like you mentioned, might struggle more because obviously at the end of the day, they're so dependent on AI that their knowledge and their actual understanding of what they're doing might not be as developed as, like you said, the people in this call or the people of older generations. I think that's also a very important perspective to consider. I left like 20 seconds so Ben could also add his word.
Well, I'll be really brief because I want to respond to your analogy with the car. I think I am with Sanji, is I'm so excited for the future. But I think one of the things I want to recognize is that technology rarely solves problems in the sense that there are no more problems. Like for every innovation, there's always unknown consequences of that innovation. And I think it's really important as a society to know, like, when we are innovating and coming up with a solution, what is the ripple effect of that solution? But I think what society does is it disrupts norms. It disrupts the way things have worked. So yes, cars are not simple anymore. You can't open up the hood and change a distributor. It has gotten more complex. And we need more specialists because there are people who do understand when they open up, like the mechanic may not understand that part, but there is an engineer in the line who absolutely understands that part and can rebuild that part. And so, yes, I think technology has diversified the fields, diversified the complexity of the system, but there are people who still own each individual part. And I think that's part of the fun of technology is it creates new fields, it creates new ways of thinking, it creates new areas of specialty.
Great. Well, time will tell. Time will tell. Thank you all very, very much. Jiya, thank you very much. You ran a wonderful conversation or discussion. And
yes, thank you, Jiya.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be doing this.
And maybe we should think about doing this again because I'm sure there'll be more developments and more ideas, and it's a learning process. Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. And yeah, Gia, I did want to commend you as well. I love seeing like, obviously I'm a high schooler myself. I love seeing like people that are in high school like taking initiative on things like this. So I kind of do feel like I'm like very happy to also see you in a similar position. And thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak today.